If I had to pick one word to describe how COVID has made me feel, it would be restricted.
Kind of feel like I'm missing out on things.
Stress.
COVID has made me feel kind of sad, depressed, and missing out.
Frustrated
with him, so it's sad for me.
Indefinite isolation.
Hello, my name is TJ Davidson, and I am the Associate Minister here at Cabot Church of Christ. And I just wanted to talk to you for a few minutes about how COVID has affected teenagers and college students. But even more importantly, what I want to talk about is not just how it has affected them, but what parents and other adults can do to help them out during this time. Dr. Jean Twenge was a psychologist, and for the past 13 years, she tracked teenagers and their behavior and their mental well-being. And what she found was that over the past 13 years, that teens have stopped hanging out with one another as much as they used to. They have started to get their driver's licenses later and later. She found that teens aren't dating as much as they once used to. And so they're not hanging out with one another, they're not driving around, they're not getting their driver's license. Teens are just kind of staying home more than they used to. And what she found interesting is that while all of these numbers seem to be going down, she found a year in which all of these numbers started to make a change. And the year was 2007. That year is significant because that is the year that the iPhone came out. And when the iPhone came out, teens were able to stream television shows and were able to have social media in their pocket. And so teens started to use their devices as a way for them to get their own social interactions. And so on Friday nights, instead of teens hanging out with other teens, they would instead just stream Netflix shows. Instead of teens driving to one another's houses to hang out, they would just flick through social media. Instead of teens going out on dates, they instead decided to have an online experience. And as Dr. Phil would say, he would ask, how's that going for you? How's it going for you that you're not hanging out with one another, that you're not going out on dates, that you're not driving to each other's houses? Well, Dr. Twenge, she also found that while all those numbers were going down, hanging out with one another, going on dates, social interaction with one another, she also found that some of the numbers were rising. Feelings of loneliness were rising. Feelings of depression and anxiety were rising. And so I don't think it has been working out very well for teenagers to be sitting at home on their phones instead of having face-to-face interactions with one another. But I think what is even more scary is that this was all true before COVID. Or as I like to say, BC. This was all true BC, before the coronavirus. And so now, if feelings of depression and anxiety and feelings of loneliness were on the rise because teens were spending time on their phone, now just think about the world that teenagers are living in. Now the social interactions that teens were having, they're not able to have anymore. Friday night football games have been canceled. Many sporting events and other social clubs and activities have been canceled and have been moved to online and to virtual. Teens aren't able to as easily sit around and talk and converse with one another and have each other over at each other's houses. I believe, just like what you heard from the teens that I had at the very beginning of this video, I asked the teens that said, give me one word or phrase that summarizes how you feel because of the coronavirus. Sad, frustrated, missing out, indefinite isolation. Teens are going through a very, very difficult time right now. And Dr. Rome is a pediatrician and head of the Center for Disease Medicine in Cleveland. And she said that the coronavirus has added pressure to their already tumultuous world. She said teens' world is already chaotic, is already tumultuous, and the coronavirus has only added a new pressure on top of their already difficult world in which they live. But I believe that I'm really not telling you anything new. I'm not telling you something that you haven't heard before, and I don't really care to spend a whole lot of time focusing on the problems, because I think we know, we experience it, we see it in our teens' faces. Instead, what I want to do is I want to look forward. I want to focus on the solution. So first of all, I want to talk to parents and tell parents, give maybe some advice or encouragement about what you can do for your teens during this time. And then I want to move on after that and talk to youth workers, and I want to talk to other adults who interact in our teens' lives. For parents, I'm sure there's a lot of great advice out there, but I just want to focus on one. And what I want to tell you is that I want to say, don't occupy, but engage. Let's not be alone together. Because I think a lot of things have been canceled. I know some schools have gone online virtually. That we have a lot more face-to-face time with our kids and our teenagers. And it can be very, very tempting. Realizing that we have our own busy schedules, we have the things that we need to get done, we have our own work that we need to do. It can be very tempting to just try to occupy our kids and our teenagers during this time. To try to find ways in which just to keep them busy and to keep them out of our way. But what I want to encourage you parents is don't occupy, but engage. And I say this for several reasons. One, I think our teens are stressed. I think they're more depressed. They're more anxious. And let me just tell you parents that I don't know if you realize just the profound impact that you have on your kid. Even though maybe they don't look like it, or they don't say it, or they don't express it, teens look to you for comfort and support and encouragement. And what a wonderful opportunity that we have during this time. Not just to give them something to occupy them and to keep them busy, but to engage them and to make meaningful moments during this difficult time. Going along with this, I think it's important to talk about the misconception between quantity versus quality time. You know, a lot of people ask do we need to spend quantity time with them or quality time with them? I was talking to someone just recently. They said, yeah, dad, he's really, really busy. He has a lot going on, but at least he's there for the significant moments. It was this idea that he may not get to spend quantity time with them, but he has, during the important moments of their life, he gets to spend quality time with them. But let me just encourage you to maybe think about it, maybe just a little bit different. Should we spend quantity or quality time with them? I think the answer is Yes, we need both. And I think the reason is because I don't think we're able to produce quality time with our kids. I don't think the kids work on our timetable. So many times you might just be spending time with your kid and doing a very random, mundane activity. You might be washing the car or picking up laundry or helping your kid clean their room. But it just so happens during that moment, your teenager asks you, how do you know you're in love? Or they ask you, how do you know if you're depressed? Or they might ask you, what do you do if you have a friend who is cutting? Or who said something to me about something going on in their home life? You see, this is the point. I don't think we can get teenagers or kids to work on our timetable. I believe it is only when we spend quantity time with our kids will kids start to open up with us, and we get to take advantage of those opportunities. And I think the more quantity time we have with our kids, the more quality moments that are able to happen. I believe that our kids spell love Time. Our kids just want us to spend time with them. And let me just kind of debunk something really quick. And maybe this sounds a little bit harsh, but let me just say, driving in the same car with one another as your kid is on their cell phone or tablet playing, that does not count as spending time with one another. Just because you're in close proximity doesn't count as actually spending time with each other. It is important that we don't occupy them, but that we engage them. That we put down our devices, that we turn off the electronics, and we spend time talking with one another, interacting and engaging with one another. I believe also that just sitting and watching your kid play a sport or in band, while they appreciate that and is a great way to show support, at the same time, it's not engaging your kid. You won't be able to have conversations just by sitting in the bleachers watching them. While those are great, and I appreciate the sacrifices both of my parents made to be at all my sporting events and games, I appreciated even so much more the quality conversations I had with my parents when we were driving home from the game that night. And so I think here is the problem. We have seen a trend of teens raising teenagers. I believe that teens are getting the sex talk from Netflix shows. The teens are learning how to deal with depression from what they see on social media. The teens are learning what a real relationship looks like through gossip columns about Hollywood actors and actresses. They say that a teen becomes an adult when they can think and provide for themselves. This is called individuation. When they can become their own individual. They become their own individual when they're able to think for themselves and provide for themselves. And as sociologists say, and psychologists say, that happens, you're able to think and to provide for yourselves. The way that happens, the process in which that takes place, is when teenagers see adults model it in their life. When they look at other adults and they see how adults handle situations, when adults bring them along and talk them through what they're going through, and talk about their decision-making processes. This is how teenagers learn to become adults, through watching adults. The problem has become we've just occupied our teenagers We just think, well, it's kind of our job just to make sure they don't get in trouble and they don't die, and we feed them and we are raising them. But this is just occupying our teenagers' time. We don't need to just be reactive and on the defense, but we need to be proactive and on the offense. We need to do intentional parenting with purposeful moments where we try to bring them along and teach them how to become young men and women of God. Let me give you 4 quick ways in which we can do this. First of all, really easy practical advice is have dinner with one another. It'd be great if it's around the dinner table, but maybe not. Maybe it's around the table at McDonald's or Wendy's, or maybe it is sitting in the car. But do it together, and when you do, have intentional conversations. Ask them about their highs and lows for the day. Say, let's all go around and everybody tell me your high and your low for the day, and tell me one good thing that happened, one bad thing that happened. I know some parents have even said, tell me a way in which you were able to help or serve someone today, a way that you were able to be a good friend today. Sometimes I've heard parents ask, tell me how you saw God today, bringing in the spiritual component in the conversation. So have dinner together and ask questions that can get at what your teen or kid is going through in their life. Ask about their highs and their lows. Something else that you can do is be more patient with them. Teens are experiencing more loneliness, more stress, more anxiety than ever. Some of the things that they used to be able to do to be able to kind of escape or to let out their frustrations was through sports or hanging out with friends, and many of those things have been taken away. So be more patient with your kid or teenager. Realize that they are going through really stressful times right now. Give them a little extra slack at times. I would also say do activities together. And I realize that I'm not saying anything just crazy new. I'm not saying anything where you're just like, wow, that just blew my mind. I had never thought of that before. I realize that you've heard of these things before, but what I want to tell you is that these things are probably more important now than they have ever been in the past. That I realize it's hard to maybe do all of these things, but now more than ever, as parents, you have such a vital and important role to play in your kid's life. Now is a great time to be super extra intentional, to be a purposeful parent. And so do activities together. If you can, if the weather's nice, go outside. Our teens need to go outside, experience the fresh air, get that vitamin D, that it is healthy for our bodies and our brains when we can move, whether we go on a walk, we go on a hike, we go on a bicycle ride, we play lawn games in our front yard, whether we shoot the basketball, throw the frisbee, walk the dog, to do things as a family. And if it's bad weather outside, go inside and play board games and do things where you're talking and interacting with one another. Our kids, while maybe the interactions with their teens and peers have been reduced because of COVID, and now is an opportunity to have increased interaction with our teens, with them and their families. They need the positive interactions in their life. So check in on them, be more patient, do activities together, and lastly, watch out for social media. While social media can at times serve the purpose of teens being able to relate to one another, engage with one another, it gives them some sort of social interaction with one another, which can be important for our teenagers. Social media can also be a very dangerous place. Usually, one of the key questions teens are asking is, who am I? They are asking the identity question during their teen years. They're trying to figure it out. And because of COVID, many times our teenagers, might have lost a job that they had. They lost the sports that they were playing. They might have lost the other extracurricular activities they were doing. More than ever, they are asking the question of identity. And I believe social media can be a very dangerous place to try to be answering that question. And so be extra vigilant about what social media platforms your teen is on. And lastly, let me spend just a few minutes talking to youth workers. There's 3 things, youth workers, that you can do to help teenagers during this time. First of all, focus on families. Be proactive with families of kids who live in unsafe or turbulent home life. And I think you know what I mean, and you know who I'm talking about. We all know those kids whose home lives are just a little chaotic. Maybe they don't have the healthiest home life. And now kids are home probably more than ever. Parents and the kids are more stressed out than ever. It's like we took a bad recipe and we put it in a pressure cooker. And so those, what used to be maybe just a little turbulent or a little chaotic, can even turn unsafe. So be proactive with the families and kids and teens who are in family situations that can be difficult, because those difficult or hard situations can turn worse. So check in on them, check in on the parents and on the kids. Make sure they're doing okay. And as adults or youth workers, try to find ways to help. Try to find ways in which you can help those parents or help those kids cope during those hard and difficult times. Also, meet needs. And this is tough because you may not be able to do the activities that you had once planned on doing or go on the trips that you had planned on going on. But try to find ways in which you can meet the needs of teenagers right now. If you're like me, I usually plan my lessons out for a year in advance. And I planned all my lessons out before COVID. I planned them out in November all the way for the next 14 months. But instead, you might have to ditch the lessons that you were doing and ask the question, what do my teens really need to hear about right now? What conversations do we need to be having? Maybe instead of talking about whatever you were going to talk about the issues teens are facing because of the coronavirus. Stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness. Or maybe you need to talk about family relationships because they're spending a lot more time with their parents. Maybe you need to talk about relationships with their friends and how they can have good, healthy relationships during these times. Find ways in which you can have meaningful conversations with the unique place that teens are in right now. And lastly, be a consistent and constant voice. So help out families, be able to meet their unique needs of this particular situation, and then also be a constant voice. Maybe you don't get to spend as much face-to-face time with the teens as you once did. Used to, I could be able to go in the schools and eat lunch with teens. I can't do that anymore. It's hard for me to go to the sporting events because some of those have been canceled. It's hard for me to do the big activities that I had planned. But make a switch, make a transition. Find ways in which you can be encouraging to teens. Maybe send more texts, write more cards than you used to. Be a positive voice on social media. What I found a few months ago is I just texted each teen individually. And I would say, hey Johnny, hey Susie, things are crazy right now. How can I pray for you? I've done that in the past, and most of the time I'll say that teens just said, I'm good. I don't need anything. But what I found during the pandemic is that more teens reached out and answered that question and would write a long answer telling me things that they were going through and how I could pray for them. So be intentional, reach out. You never know just what an encouraging word, how that can help that teenager. Oh, we're going through a very unique and different and difficult time. But I believe as parents and as youth workers, we have unique opportunities to speak truth and life and the gospel of Jesus into our teens' lives. Let's take advantage of those opportunities. May God bless you all.